Don't see it. This is something you won't want to miss.
He closed the door and we looked at all the photos on the wall. He explained to him and the killer going into the night at the pole, drinking a glass of champagne and suffering as they went under it, and a few other photos of things that this doctor had done. And I was impressed, and he sat down, and he's a big tall man, and he put his boots up his desk and his feet, and had me sit in front of him there in the chair, and he said, "All right, boy, tell me what you've been doing at home in your lab." And I thought, well, after looking at all the degrees and stuff he had, mathematics background, whatever, I kind of felt pretty small, and I thought, well, how do I tell this guy I've been working on anti-gravity or stuff like that, as well as plasma, also. And I said, well, sir, I've been working on a theory about how magnetism and electricity, and he said, wait, don't do it with me. You're working on anti-gravity, we know that. You want to come work with us? And that was the start of a very long and circuitous journey around the planet and back. It took me away from home for 30 years, mainly in Australia, part of the time briefly in Serbo Croatia or Yugoslavia, like from Tesla. But other than that, I was down in Australia, and I was locked out of the United States for that 30-year period. The reason is more involved. Basically, I was recruited to go down to Australia with them. They moved me and my family down to my apartment. I was pitched in, and that was in a separate apartment, anti-gravity department. But I came to find out that they had already done what I was doing in the 50s, late 50s, and had moved on to the anti-gravity. Well, just about the time I was really getting excited what to do, having this anti-gravity and with it. I was invited to lunch by Sir John, who was my control agent here in Melbourne. And we went to what's called the Melbourne Club, which is, kind of like the place for people that controlled Australia in the Round Table Association. If you're familiar with conspiracy theory, you'll know what Round Table Organization means.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, John and Sir Henry were sitting across from me. One of the, I think it's a professor from one of the universities was there too. We were in the lunchroom there, which in this place was like a very old-time formal hotel with butlers coming around with little silver trays and Ford cigars and that kind of crap. Sorry, that kind of stuff. Anyway, we were sitting there talking, and it kind of fell silent for a minute, and Sir John turned to Sir Henry, and he said, "Henry, they're moving in on us. We're losing this one." And so I waited for them to explain, and nothing happened. I said, well, sir, do you mean that the European economic community is moving in on, he looked at it like I said a bad word and said, no. Henry, going up to the property for fishing this weekend? Yes, John, yeah. And conversation went flat from there on. And when he was talking about the aliens, I figured this out later as more information came my way. Since, gosh, the Earth, I guess, apparently humans and critters, which were really like biological robots. So they didn't have like a soul or anything like that. Were just intelligent at all.
It's like race.
But that's what people call it. And there were several sides of those emotions. And above them were humanoid beings that were slightly taller than we were, probably a foot or so. And most of them were quite handsome men and women. And their vision, we told them apart from all human, would be that it's their times in the sunlight, where you and I would sweat through sweatbands. They have little tiny scale that makes their skin kind of wrinkle when it turns, in the sun, like a little thing.
That sounds like Vikings.
Well, I don't know. Well, I've heard the name. I don't know whether they use them or what, but I'm pretty sure most of them were from a parallel universe. They seem to pour through a gateway, kind of like the gateway from the insert up 2 miles, and you get through it in a number of places on the planet. Anyway, these were the beings, and they were what they were moving in on our base.
Wow. Well, Stan, hold right there. I want to get more into these different pieces of extraterrestrials that you interacted with. I also want to get your take as well on why the term people being body. We're at the ladies and gentlemen right here. So they are.
Illuminati at the Secret Society in Bavaria. And from there I started my studies into medicine, adult when I left home. So I have basic understanding of the powers of the left hand that move behind the scenes to control government. So I didn't, I didn't see anybody with the name Illuminati engraved on their jacket or their forehead or whatever. There are some by them without knowledge. One of these individuals information, and I didn't worry about that. We studied that too. So, my friend, in your information, tried to convince me that that's the way I ought to go. Fortunately, I would see through it and very kindly decline. This was before the but when I was approached by Dr. James R. Maxwell, it was a guy that and picture about Dr. Teller and to organize my trip to Australia. When Dr. Maxwell approached me about my work and the physics of it and how secret it was and had been doing it, I was thrilled. I was overjoyed, and I overlooked the caution. That had told me what else these guys bring gifts. And of course, they hit me in my weak spot. As a scientist, a physicist, I love that kind of stuff. And so for someone to pay me to come in and work on a secret project building flying saucers was absolutely just irresistible.
Of course.
So, I got down there and as I said, Mike Williams and Captain John Williams, sorry. And I have a picture of him up on my website on and it was common if you go to Stan's page or Stan's corner, I think they call it there, whatever Holly calls it. And you can scroll down there and see a picture if you want to do that. Now, the whole organization was most of what I was studying with either security detail people, like really hard as nails extremes or military of some sort, carrying guns, those security, and a lot of them were from South Africa, and from Germany, believe it or not, and certainly from even Australia, and Norway, Canada, and U.S., of course. All these were the mixed people that come, and they didn't seem like human material on the surface, but it was sometime in when I took the history club, and I was asked a few days later by Sir John, one of his deputies, to bring up the Deputy Prime Minister of Australia. He gave out a shower and time. He had come to emergency meeting about Shell Oil, some energy stuff the next day. So here was
Pine Gap, a joint USA-US correction. Pine Gap, a joint US-Australia and USA Signals Intelligence Base, part of the Five Eyes Alliance. It's a UFO base where they're doing the anti-gravity, physics, and much more. This goes back before I was born, and my mother was like early 1950s even then. Given that the temperatures of Australia, hiding, good place to hide the technology. Now the American underground base, known as my DUNS underground bases around the world. Now American underground base at Pine Gap, Australia, perception is man-made alien deception and coming into the US. There's an insider worked for, she just briefly heard. Now, the Signals Operations and the Electronic Warfare Department of Signals Corps military. They've been working on technology for a long time. Take a bit of salt what you might hear, but the radiation the solar waves off the natural sun is affecting Earth's atmosphere. So they spray it out with the chemical engineering, weather engineering for a long time. And then also you've got the comets in the weather. Wood planets combined. And mix that with this technology. Now in history and educate self, or if you want to, why do you think world their masonry lodges, freemasonry, Illuminati, the families, families from history in today, behind the scenes that is, use puppets to portray the illusion who's meant to be the governments, monetary system, bankers, the families. And then when you become enlightened and awakened to certain subjects, like I and many others, you become a target, subjected for many, many years on many things. What happened to me recently was money, because the advancement of technology is such an extent that the general public, a lot of people may not be aware. The Illuminati, I think hard to call it, there's information out there to look at. To give the assumption of alien invasion, all these sci-fi movies, all these years, gives it away. What is important with the implants into human individuals, cloning them? Cloning sheep, that was how long ago? Sorry, the sheep cloning. How they've been experimenting with human DNA. Have they been mixing the DNA with non-human entities, species of cells? In the mind of that, now excellent innovation out there. I think it's also So years ago. Max Spires. How he died, and I found a very good interview with Mother of Max Spires. He died overseas, and he died with his black substance in his body that killed him. Where does he get black goo? I don't know much myself about it. It's worth investigating because nanoparticulates, nanotech, and AI, and the advancement of technology is only just now being got out for years, and how it's a good thing to have the brain, neuron, I would say, first with just looking to see who backs the funding of these families. Now, you've got Elon Musk as one, but look at his mum's side and his dad's side of genealogy. And then when you dig deep, you'll find out the mother's side of the family, the dad's side of the family, is linking up the dots if you've got time. Now, the big thing is, right, as well, with an underground basis, for example, it's so unlawful of human trafficking for certain things that are coming out on alternative. I can't say much on here, but alternative social media. I've known about things for a while. There's a darkness, and we might always conquer darkness anyway, but there is a darkness. Now, as a child, like, is my late mum, and there's a lot of things that happened to me. My other brothers and sisters, I was the youngest one. I was the youngest one that witnessed a lot of things. I was the only one that would go and seek support and help from my mum and my brothers and sisters. What happened to us. Now I know all the processes into this day. The mind of labs, the military program, the radio space, all this technology as well as spiritual. My screen yesterday, 40 hours this morning, like how they put the brain in sleep state, the mind is being put into subconscious, so you're not quite in the REM stage of sleep naturally, and how this advancement technology of teleporting is available. I didn't even know a lot of this after reason. About years. So I've known a lot of stuff, but I can't say much. And how they radiate. The radiation is a major thing for anyone on this earth at the moment because the Earth atmosphere is being damaged. I'm not a scientist, this game. Oh, hiya, Tanya, how are you? Uh, yeah, so I was going to second phone. Okay, so I'm just going to briefly outline some information description about the bio about my situation from childhood through. So ever since I was a kid, I've been on the radar, and so when I have my kids, they too are in this demonic foundation of the practical gang stalking organised, the ultra has never stopped. It's just more sophisticated. The technology behind this too, and then the demonic spiritual side as well. So they had to make sure that our children, especially both of them at a very early age, have to have their brain. They split the brains. They have super soldiers have the ultras and ultra. So traumatized. This is what they did in our centuries ago and raised their kids so they wouldn't be affectionate. The families and parents and stuff would never be affectionate. They would starve their children of a love and affection, and they will create the disassociation barrier of the brain to cover that pain and the lack of affection and love for their own families. Now that I know of the research that goes back to the 15th century and throughout these centuries forward now, and they're sophisticated in such a way, using frequencies as well, technology on top. Now, the practicality of data function of human body, when you experience a traumatic, the brain, size of the brain split. To be a split part of the brain to cover the pain and trauma and memories of whatever these events or a event might be, and then to cope with everyday practical things on top. So you might have practical problems to deal with, and as I said, the organising and stalking, the label, the slander, the what I've just experienced. The robbery theft was done by design. It was premeditated. Whoever, how much they paid that man, they must have paid him a lot for what they were desperate to do something to me, to literally stop me, and literally make me. They hoped I would be psychologically so disturbed and so upset that if you, I mean, but I'm still traumatizing. But I'm sorry. So let me just tell you in the chat. Yeah, let me just check the audio. Yeah, let me just check the audio. So what after a lot of it's just hard because I know so much, and I'm a beacon, and first time the public servants in my area, UK, become in my life when I had a knee operation. Didn't go well. I had minor personal care in the old house. 2008, at the beginning of the year, didn't go too well. Struggled a lot with mobility. I was a fitness into the gym. I was constantly every day into the gym, very healthy, very fit. And my son had moved away by then to London with then a girlfriend who was having his first child. My daughter had married somebody. She had expecting his kid. She had another one as well. And that period, I was regaining in a hospital in London to get a physio, but what I didn't know is they cut part of the bone on me, and no cartilage. I've got no cartilage left in my knee, and I didn't know all these years ago today it will cause my mobility average. So of course, whatever reason, about that year, when the physical therapy in the hospitals and stuff, and the X-rays I have no idea when I got implanted. When all that stuff began, could have been any time. I've had anaesthetics generally for operations in my spine. My dental treatment in London. I used to travel a lot to London. We go back earlier in the early 90s. I was very publicly known for political opinions, speaking up for families and children who's being really not greatly treated at school. So my past really, I have to go back in the major event of a serious event, like quite a few of them actually throughout my whole life. Oh, I heard about that, Tanya. How is that happening? The volcano in the island. They said there's just water, all the islands. Oh my gosh, they're all underwater. Is that happened today or was that yesterday? Because I saw somebody's post about the weather, and that's what I was wondering. Thank you for asking. Not doing too good myself. You don't know, you just noticed it yesterday. Yeah, I saw a post on it of that too. Something about the water. I wasn't sure if all the islands had been under the water. I wouldn't be too surprised because if those waves were 4 feet high, you know, and the pressure gauge of that amount of water, depending the land amount, miles or height of the islands, they would be swallowed up. But also, I'm aware of information generally on the incoming planetary bodies, i.e., the people call it Planet X system with its own moon and solar system. But I grew up when we were doing the Bible, King James Bible version, and the effects really also solar storms are creating unease all over the world of the weather changes where people get heat when they're not meant to, when people get snow when they're not meant to. So the pole shifts are also solar minimum and adapt. Is it adapt 2030 channel? He's been for years preparing people. And people called preppers have been saying this for years too. I don't really know much because everyday pressures are in the way. Yeah, there's a party just gone live to talk about it. I feel sad for them. They are sending in help from Australia and New Zealand. Wow. You see, this is where you've got the weather contrast as well. Yeah, Tanya. Tornadoes in Florida. You see, that coast, it's a while ago now when somebody did whether it's a stream or video, can't quite remember, saying that Florida would be affected because of all the coastlines, basically, Pacific water areas. You know where not expert geography, by the way, the lines where the pole shifts are affected, it's switching. So anybody can go and check out some old history. Adapt 2030 is very good. You've got people been warning about these earthquakes, volcanoes. I'm not a scientist, a disclaimer. And so yeah, it's what's happening now on Earth is biblical. In my opinion, because I was raised in a religious cult, but yeah, I have to take pieces of information when I find it and make my own. Trust my gut instinct. Now, what I know about my life and what I document in journals, good job, I've always done that ever since I was 16, 16. Dates, times, events, who's done what, how, and my whole life has been nothing but, it's not always been negative, but I haven't met the right people. I've had a lot of violence in my life. So the worst thing was somebody put a gun to my head and attacked me all night. My ex-lodger I had when I first had my own house. You see, when you have a military brother, I don't know what they done to him, but he put me into the program with my half elder brother. You see, you're not meant to leave the Illuminati connections in freemasonry, and that's what I was a member of. You see, I didn't know that my mother didn't know as much, and the secrets in the rituals and temples. My mother, she didn't know no different. Her serious things happened to us as a kid growing up. This occult's own counselling system must have psychologically done a number on her, and she always claimed that she was healed. But the true faith in Christ, or whatever label we want to put on it, is within, and we're spiritual beings, and the physical things happen by those of a spiritual character that possessed, as swear to goodness are. And a lot of them are compromised. So you either do this for us or we will do this to you. No choice, really. It's black and white, no in between. So I had, I left the occult, the only I had as I could, and I was a youngish age. So the MK Ultra, they did tried to split my personality in this room of about 8 to 10 men, claimed to be leaders of this. I won't mention which cult it is. It's well known, international, wealthy, extremely wealthy. But the origins of the setup in the 1800s, late 1700s to 1800s, the founder was Freemasonry, all this family were. Black magic, all that stuff. But they throughout all these years on, they covered it all up, twisted it all, the real true history. And Hannah Smith, I think she's called that, she used to have this website and newsletters, and I followed many years ago when I needed to find out why the hell did my late mum sit outside the room and I was torn and thread emotionally. I'll be hated for the rest of my life, but I'm disowned by the family. And what? Because I met my daughter's father. And I used to work, my first job I had when I left college, and I left home, I got my own place. And then, of course, it wasn't meant to have a child out of the religious setup. So, yeah, they condoned me psychologically, and they did a bloody good job on that regard. So it affected my ability to have proper relationships with anyone. And I hated my mother for years because of it. My the only sister, she was so traumatized what happened to her as a kid too. Her mind split, and she became reliant on my mother for everything psychologically. So when she got married off, and that was it, she didn't question nothing. She stayed in it. She's always stayed in the occult and raised the kids. Now they're married and older and stuff. And every one of my family members have done that because they dare not leave to see what's done to me, and they don't know. So they marry off their own kids when they're older. They make sure the boys go to missionary schools and stuff. And yeah, and they use their connections. They've been using their outside of the religious occult in their Freemason connections, especially locally in my elder brother, to make sure I have a life of a really demonic side in every regard. So it is no coincidence when you meet people and end up being violent. And yeah, when I lived, mum moved abroad, sold up, moved abroad. So I was advised to move up here with my older brother. Place, big mistake to have my child. And everything I left behind was everything I ever knew, which is really a beautiful place, and it was peaceful, and it was my life to live in this hellhole. And since I moved here, it was nothing like witnessing the abuse that I'm going to put edge now, to my brother. Well, my brother, what he did to his own children. And when I shared a room with my niece, she was only 4. So I witnessed a lot. And what they did to my nephew. And how they ended up in care. And how my brother hated me knowing. So he'd been plotting since for so long, and he had to have the backing of my army brother, because my brother got kicked out of the home many years ago, and my mother forced him to join the military. Yeah. So she didn't know no different because my mum was going through trauma. She didn't know how else to handle things. And she was going on the advice of these occult leaders, you know. So the army's messed up my older brother, natural brother. And in that period of time in the 80s, early 80s, I was naive and young and made to go back to the church again. They tried to marry me off with somebody, arranged marriage, and I wasn't having it. So after that, my brother said, well, made up loads of lies, and in what the robbery just had, in one of the phones, insert phone case, was my evidence of 1983, dated, where my elder brother lied about me, the handling of my daughter. I had her. She was not that old, and my brother fitted new carpets in his house, and it wasn't fitted right. I fell down 2 steps with my daughter in my arms. Luckily, my baby wasn't hurt, and I was young, and yet my sister-in-law, my brother, just destabilised and said we don't want you in the house anymore, and made homeless of my baby. And that's my first experience having a house on my own. They didn't offer me any support to move. They said you made your bed, you lay on your own. Luckily, I found a part-time job in a pub, and I met some really nice people. One of them was a lovely lady and her husband who offered to babysit my daughter when I did part-time shifts. And I met one of the bar women, young girls as well, and I had a spare room, so I said you can stay there for a bit, rent it out, be a company for me. Moving on, I met somebody else in the meantime, and I had my son. So by then it was 2 kids at a young age. And what I didn't know, the lodger, female, she fell out with her boyfriend, and he was a part of a local gang, mob gang. I didn't know. I was so naive at the time. And that's when the serious first assault happened. My kids were in the next room. Sorry. And if any woman out there knows what it's like to have a gun at your head all night and pretend you'll even be assaulted all night, and you still survive eventually, but the mind is fractured. The split, alter of the mind dissociates. The police hunted him down eventually, and me and the kids ended up in a temporary housing place. I don't remember anything else because the mind is forgotten. My mind's forgotten. I can't remember nothing else. That's how bad it was. And I just know that he got sent down, but everything else is a blur. I just know that I eventually got offered a new place to live, but when you're going through so much of that, it's like the mind has to keep putting all this trauma about things that happen at the back of your mind to cope with everyday stuff. So I'm giving this background because it builds up to where the research program for NK Ultra individuals, they want people like me in their program so they can monitor all the time with the technology all the time as a prime candidate if that individual is good at altering their brain waves and disassociation because of these past traumas in their life. And if they've gone through trauma as a kid as well, they're very good candidates. So it's a bit like that Manchurian candidate movie out there. Anybody can go and watch it and you can see what I'm talking about. Sending loves to you and your family. Will my helper when they can help me, Tanya, thank you. And what's the time for you over there? Low-lying area along the beaches too. They put people into our lives to hurt us. Unfortunately, you're so right. Cut through a long story short, many years now to date. I managed to make a life for myself and my children by sheer determination, really, and amazingly wrong. But I had so many bad nightmares, flashbacks, the trauma at the new house, and I couldn't live there. I got an exchange, moved into the town centre, but then I kept getting all these bad nightmares. I thought the psychologists at the time for the real bad trauma effects of my life were meant to help people. Looking back on it all, now I know they're not. They're just gathering information about you. So of course, I really was just searching for a father figure. My father's, my son's father really was a lovely man, musician. He too couldn't cope. So I was on my own with him. And don't get me wrong, my late mum, she meant well, she did the best. But I wasn't interested in religion, not my experiences. I just went opposite. I was very liberal, very liberal. So I got in, met all walks of life. I've met well-known people. I don't mention no names. And I know these people were very well connected. And that's how I began learning a lot about real life, really. Travelled a lot, got invited to loads of places, and with my kids, and was careful. I made sure they came first. So then that's how I got into politics. And when my son started having problems and education wise and tried to help my daughter, I just took on the system single-handedly in my area and was successful to get the support my son needed going to college eventually. And my daughter just hated me because I was spending too much time with my son on that regard. I did balance it out best I could, but she didn't want to know. She ran away from home in the clutches of my elder brother. And he and every one of my religious family member in the occult with my consent. And that's when the state became involved in my life. Public service all those years ago. And my daughter was manipulated at a young age all those years ago. So, I mean, she did apologise, she did realise in 2014 that it was all my family. As her mum, I just have to forgive, it's hard. And that's what I try to do even with my son, even though I know they're using my son towards me as well. I know he's going through a lot. I know he's been used as well, and the brain-based technology too. And I don't shout my adult, older son, grandson, and daughter now at all. And this is the isolation program, part of the gas talking NK Ultra, my targeted program. Isolate you from everyone you ever know, any contact you have, friends or family, and they're correct such with the MI5, MI6, whoever else, falsify technology, medical records, your personal data basically, any data to falsify and lie about, and then make it so good. They're well trained in this. So I've had to learn law because of all that. So, of course, by the bad relationships and choices, and my ex-husband being a Freemason and a master mason of that. I mean, at the beginning of it all, he taught me business. That's why I learned a lot of my skills from, as well as others. And that's when I was going to set up a business, and then he was a nasty man and things happened, and I wish I did marry him now, but it took me forever to get divorced, and I met somebody else after 2 or so years later, and turned out to be a similar character, and then it took me forever to get a restraining order against him. Yeah, so my so-called emotional relationships with the male sex wasn't very, very, very pleasant. I've had some nice relationships as friends, platonic friends, and loyal friends over the years, and that's been lovely. So it's balanced it out. and it showed my son and daughter that there is decent people out there at some point. But sadly, my daughters, when she got married, it didn't work out. They did the same to my son, so this. And I don't bother, not interested after the last attempt I had to have a friendship, a platonic friendship, 2012, when he attacked me. Police did nothing. It was in my own home. I was in my wheelchair by then. And I had public servants. I did all those intimate video recordings for the police and everything. My whole life was just like, it's always been one thing after another in that regard. There might be a break of a bit of peace, but within 2 months, I guarantee there'll be a major crisis again. It's always been like that. I'm very good at blocking a lot of stuff out. But it's always a learning curve. I didn't know why all these things are happening to me all the bloody time, and scenarios and situations. And so when I look back at my journals and I'm thinking, oh my God, so how did my old house get broken into? Why I ended up moving in? Well, I stumbled across a paedophilia ring years ago, and I was trying to help certain young individuals. I can't say specifics. And I uncovered by chance the much darker side of life. Sadly, that young individual had been used, and certain individuals involved all these years on are still around the area. Some have moved away, but some of them are political connections. And I've never been a whistleblower, never will. And disclaimer, powers that be, I don't speak about anything that I know in that regard. Others do, not me. Sadly, the individual become a certain way. If he wasn't used and abused, he wouldn't be in his life he's got now. But there you go. And I'm pointing out that internationally, the underground dance, I didn't know this about a year ago, I found this out. It's nothing new. It's worldwide. So because that individual male hated me, still does, because I tried to help him when he was young, and because I knew his secret is nothing to be ashamed of. You've been assaulted and harmed by somebody, and you go along with things because your own dad disowned you, and he's on the streets, got nowhere to go, and I took him in. So he had somewhere fed and watered, sort of thing. But the public servants wouldn't help him. I did. And then he got used by certain people. One of them lives right near me. He made it a mission when I lost my old house and got broken into. Before everything else happened before that, I didn't know that individual lived near me. And ever since I moved in, he's been trying to get me moved out. And I didn't know none of this until 2018. On the subject of organised stalking, gaslighting, I did wonder why he kept making certain comments, why he was picking on the carers over the years, why this, why that, make it difficult with this housing company individuals locally. It's much worse than that now. And why people are moving in and out. And I was always being said I can't do minor adaptations for my disability needs when it was suitable for my needs in this place. And no matter what reports I had done, it's always trying to get me moving out. 2012-13. You wouldn't even make it up. I took on powers that be and I won my case from my administration even then. So that got the backup of certain powers that be in my area. Certain individuals all those years ago still working in a position in a certain well-known public sector, and that certain individual, female, since 2008, that's how far back with her it goes, has always been behind the scenes making sure I don't get what I'm lawfully entitled to in the correct treatment. And instead of the correct physical support at the time, and 2000, and since I got one over 2010 up to 2014, it was nothing that I won't go into it all, but very deliberately done so I wouldn't feel comfortable in my own home, put it that way. I've documented everything, reported everything, and everybody got held accountable. Okay, Tanya, you need to go. It's 12:30. Don't know what time it is for you. White noise machine. I've tried that before to stop the tinnitus. There's other individuals worldwide. Let's check the chat. Am I being heard? They've just hacked my phone. Tanya says, sending hugs to all target individuals around the world. Yeah, me too, Tanya. Sending hugs. Love awakened to you and your family. Helper. Thank you, Tanya. How is your mum, by the way, if you're still in the chat? Did you notice I was asleep? I thought I was asleep. I've done an upload. Yeah, I'm being hacked into. Can't pin that comment. There's a TI, it says Uncle John TI Research has changed his name. He's trying to look for solutions, bless his heart. Right, so basically, this is a curse. What I'm trying to point to. How to be delivered from a curse. So Mo Smith, check his channel out if you want. Breaking generational curses. So somehow the curse of this demonic got into my DNA family. This is Derek Price, 8 years ago. He's passed away, God rest his soul. But it's got, Mo put it in the chat yesterday, and how they put me to sleep with the MK Ultra and the noise campaign. Now, you see, I don't know how individuals, i.e. target individuals' invitation to TI News and a targeted journey. You've got to be careful about certain other channels with disinformation. Let me just check for this one. Yeah, no.
I had to cold turkey the chicken and the red meat. Really?
So, what's he saying? Something, another channel. Why is he putting
Sorry, the silent green thing is real, but I remember that too. They were talking about that green stuff that's in the meat or whatever.
I saw a video on that, but then they said it wasn't true, so I don't know. Special sauce made by Jeff at the back. Jeffrey is the male version of Karen. The fries are toxic as well. Yeah, I don't fuck with the fries, man. As understandable. McFondles. Just
What I find genuine talk individuals are badly attacked. On the technology too. You don't have, perhaps the countries, perhaps it's different. There's somebody saying Starship Voyager, Planet Earth. Let me listen to Blue Raven for a minute. It's like he's got a house, or someone's house. He goes there to check off, and he goes again. Let me see the reason. I see it's pointing hand. So I'll go back to my channel. Illuminati Insider. Right, you have to bear with me because I'm going to check the audio if it's being. Right, you have to bear with me because I don't. Yeah, you can hear, but you can't see because it's tapped into my computer. My phone, I should say. Right, I'm not going to talk anymore. I'm just going to let this play out. The Illuminati. It's from the 15th century, soon applied to various groups. There's a lot of history, educateyourself.org about that if you want to. But personal stuff in my life now, it's all leading up to the biggest picture I can imagine. In England, it's used in the Care Act 2014, Section 42. Assumptions going back 2017 already rebutted. That's no good for them. Set up 2019. Healthcare subject related. Housing related. Financial related. Now they've put in my path. Public servants. But these are all corporations, public funded, with contracts out to private companies. These are agents, but they are using the theft of Thursday the 1st, 2022 by design to cause me serious problems now onwards on this physical plane. So I won't keep this long, just play this audio.
Did you know that you can make money from YouTube within the next 6 hours with a brand new channel and zero subscribers?
Working on physics, but I had to ring this guy who was the deputy prime minister of the whole darn country and tell him what to do and tell him, this comes from John, and he would jump and through hoops, which he did. So I started to realize, oh dear, these guys are what my dad warned me against. These are the Illuminati, are part of them. And they were the round table, the branch of the Illuminists there. As far as the great critters, I was briefed on them mainly by security detail, and I never met, well, I don't have any grades, obviously, he doesn't remember. There was one time that I thought I met two of the Nordic, Icelandic featured, fair-haired, tall, handsome man and woman couple. And I was in a room along with them for a few minutes. They were on the way to a meeting at the United Nations, and I remember I felt like a canary in a cage with the door open and the cat was looking at me. It was that kind of a feeling of a threat from them. And they said nothing unusual. Their eyes looked normal. They weren't like cat eyes or anything like that. But I just got the feeling that they were looking at me as a very inferior life form. I don't know how to explain it, but you sense it. And so that's as close as I think I ever came to meeting the people that were in agreement with the people of Earth. It wasn't just the United States. It was Great Britain, the United States, Canada, Germany, Russia. In fact, Dr. Teller's equal, or opposite over in Russia was Dr. Andrei Sakharov, whom the Russians put under house arrest for letting him get his Nobel Prize. But still, he was the representative for the dating affairs. What is not widely known, I just mentioned it probably 3 or 4 weeks ago in passing on a show, is that we had a base in Saudi Arabia. And this base, my security detail told me about it, it was probably one of the most secure underground bases we had in the world, which had aliens and humans working together in it. If you tried to come on foot within sight of the base, you were killed immediately. There was no question, no interrogation, no passwords. You were killed. And if you tried to come in by any other means in the air and were not part of one of these craft coming in, you were shot down and killed, no questions asked. And this place is 120 kilometers outside of Riyadh, in the middle of Saudi Arabia. I've got an image of that somewhere up there on the website. I'm just checking real quickly. I think I've got it up for you to see somewhere. Yes, I do. What you have to do, you have to go. You have a computer there, Chris?
Oh yeah, I'm at your website right now.
Okay, if you're at the main website, let me just get back to that. I'll vector you in. If you're at the main website, you go down to where that little blue microphone is, or was. Where is it?
Okay.
There it is. Under YouTube, that gray microphone with recent interviews.
I see.
Go to the right of that where it says show images. Click on that.
Okay.
And then go down to image 1, which is about 4 lines down. First image says Atlantis.
Okay, I see that.
You click on that, and then scroll all the way to the bottom of the page quickly. Look at image 61.
All right, I've got it up.
That's where our base was, in that arc somewhere.
Wow.
Yeah. And
that's in the middle of nowhere.
It is. I'll tell you what. Apparently, the way that we got permission from the Saud family to do this is one of the sheikhs that was involved in control that area. I think it was the Salman family. But anyway, I won't swear at that because they've just taken power at the moment. But one of them was in power back in the early 60s. Had an illicit affair with a woman that he was a Muslim, and so they blackmailed him to give us his face.
Well, yeah, Saudi Arabia would be the perfect place because most Westerners would not want to go to Stan's website. So, Stan, there are some really fascinating photos. We were on the subject of Saudi Arabia, the base in Saudi Arabia, and the extraterrestrial encounters or the extraterrestrial cooperation. Now, a question comes to mind. Is this a group of globalists, the Illuminati, these people that recruited you at one point to work on anti-gravity propulsion systems, are they in league with these extraterrestrials, or are they working with these extraterrestrials? Maybe they serve the extraterrestrials themselves.
Yes and no. We helped them build a lot of their underground bases and manufacturing facilities in various secret locations. They pushed through from the parallel universe. They pushed through, gated through, whatever you want to call it. And there was a war where they lived with the ruling authority, and they were pushed through the gateway with limited technology that came with it, their craft and whatever they had in it. So they needed to rebuild their war machine in essence, because the fight's going to continue down here shortly from the parallel universe with them. And so they kind of coerced the Illuminati into helping them build these underground facilities in return for the secrets of anti-gravity and, like it takes to let you walk through solid walls without damage and stuff like that, and altering time, the passage of time. Now, they did all this, and they let us have that much. much, and a few other smaller things that to us were pretty huge in industry. But anyway, but in '75, I think it was, they started moving on us in our base in '74, '75, and they started shootouts with us to move the humans out of the bases because the aliens had already built enough of the infrastructure they needed that they didn't need us anymore. They could reproduce and increase their technology without us. They didn't want us peeking over their shoulder. They treated us kind of like fodder. It's the best way I can describe it. So when they did this, the powers that be in the Illuminati and in the banking facilities, all that kind of stuff, were obviously quite concerned. But the leader of this group of rebels from this parallel universe said, look, we're making a deal with you. We're going to set up a global government. You guys can run it. We'll back you. But leave us alone. We've got a war to handle that's coming here. We're the good guys. The guys that are coming through are the bad guys. That's how they described it. So, if you run the parallel to the Bible stories about the end times, you see that the leader of these quote-unquote aliens is Satan, and his alien, like angel beings who are kicked out of heaven, the parallel universe, into our world to stay here and get ready for a battle, the last battle at the day of Armageddon.
Wow, so this really goes back even before the time of the flood, way back to our ancient history, the fallen angels.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But I tell you what, there is so much to tell you tonight. I can't possibly get through it all, but I'm going to tell you about the Garden of Eden, where it is, and why it's important. Where Atlantis is, and how the aliens who are there, or the fallen ones were there before, and how they're there again. And, in the middle of everything that's about to happen, it's about to be a short tactical nuclear war in the Middle East. It's going to happen very soon. All these things that are they all fit together. I finally got the picture. And to find Atlantis is one of and the Garden of Eden, these are two of the greatest archaeological discoveries a person could ever hope to discover, and I have done it and proved it. And
take us away, please, wherever you want to begin.
I'm not. I'm going to spoil it by saying where these places are to start with, so that you can follow along with me because of the shortage of time. First of all, the Garden of Eden. I prove this on a set of DVDs that I've got there. One of the DVDs is on it. Atlantis, Garden of Eden, and Solomon Lectures. You can get that on our website. Go back and look at that later. But the Garden of Eden is in northern Tanzania, and it's in the inside of a collapsed volcanic crater. The only one in the world is still the volcanic rim intact around it. And I traced the Garden of Eden to there, and 4 great rivers that came out of there, and where they went, and how they became coastlines as the Pangea, as the earth split apart. And to underscore what I'm about to say about Atlantis and about Eden and about the flood and what caused it, we must accept a couple of things here. These are the basic premises that physicists will say, oh, no, it can't be, but they're going to have to catch up. Modern physics, cosmological physics of the universe, is saying that if something like a Big Bang occurred and all the mass of the universe was condensed down into a small dot down in the beginning, then it was very compact, it was very dense, and electromagnetic waves like light, all kinds of electromagnetic frequencies, traveled a lot faster because everything was denser. As a result, as the universe expanded out to where it is now, the speed of light dropped, slowed down. The speed of all electromagnetic radiation slowed down. And that meant that dating things with radiocarbon dating was incorrect. All radiometric dating was incorrect because they all assume, part of the physics of all this, they assume the speed of light is around 186,256 miles per second, and it's basically stayed that way forever. But that's wrong. It is now decreasing. In the last 200 or 300 years, it's been decreasing. We follow the curve back to the Big Bang, and it's an exponential curve. At the Big Bang, the speed of light was 60 zeros. One was 6 zeros behind it, times faster than it is now. I can't even say the number, it's so big. And as a result, you have to plug that factor in to the age of the universe, to the age of the sun, to the age of the earth, and to our ancient history. When you do that, the earth is probably less than 50,000 years old. That's from the magnetic data we can get. And, the talk about Atlantis being 12,000 years ago or 9,000 BC years old, that's acceptable in the Garden of Eden back in there, too. There's a dating here, we think, in the Hebrew account of when the Garden of Eden started. So when you put all these things together, the Earth is much younger, and dinosaurs roamed with men. I've seen the footprints in Texas myself. If you've been to Glenrose, I know you've been in Texas. If you've been to Glenrose to the dinosaur tracks here, you can see human footprints walking in the mud next to the dinosaur.
Oh, yeah.
So
I took Cherie when we first met. We were right there in Allen, right next to McKinney. So we headed down to Glenrose. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay, so, all right, now, here's the next difficult thing. Physicists say, look, the mass of the Earth can't change. Okay, I agree. But the Earth has been smaller in diameter than it is now by about 25%. It has expanded since the beginning of it. And in part of the gravitational theory I was working on back in the days there in Australia, I developed a fluid mechanics version of the whole universe. That space is like a fluid. You treat it like a fluid. And it spirals. It's the original Big Bang generated spirals like smoke in a crowded bar. When you blow into it, it makes spirals of things out there. And these are galaxies, and within those are planets, and they form. But what happens is, as they form, it's a horrendous, fast speed in a very viscous space. And it's like stirring honey, cold honey. It's to the speed of this energy going into the fluid of the universe. So what happened? It's like in a glass of water. You pour some white sand and some black sand in and stir it up. You watch what happens in the middle. We'll leave that after the break.
Excellent. We'll be right back. And Stan, let me say this too. I have seen petroglyphs that depict dinosaurs. There's no way that could have happened unless they were both walking the earth at the same time. So I think you're onto something. We'll be right back right here as we go deeper beyond the veil.
English translation of the name of the guy that's in image 10. He was the 4th generation down from Shem after the flood. His name was Joktan. Now, when you look at image 11 and see his name over now the Yucatan Peninsula, you say, so what does that have to do with anything? Well, that meant that Joktan, after the flood, 4 generations after, he had migrated over with his people over to that area, which is, now part of the Yucatan Peninsula. If you say to the people in the Yucatan Peninsula, to the Mayans or Aztecs, Descendants, whatever, why do you call this the Yucatan? They have no idea. If you look in the Hebrew for this Joktan, his name in Hebrew is Yucatan. And that tells you that they were there before the earth split, and they were the 4th descendant, the 4th generation from Shem, from Noah. So, okay, now that splits, that takes care of them. They're split apart. You can now put that drawing away. And understand that as the continent split, what caused them was a huge asteroid impact. In fact, there could have been several. I found one, the mystery one that the oil industry's been looking for in the Indian Ocean. I found it. And it made a crater that's 240 miles wide. And the main impact hole that it made, it's not the crater with the hole, showed that it was 15 miles in diameter. And it traveled in at about 32 degrees angle, going from the west to the east. In fact, if you go down to the 4th row to number 1 Atlantis Island and click on that, that will take you over to some coast-to-coast images that did the other day. And it will show us that asteroid, where it hit. And they go to slide 5. And you click on slide 5 and you see that it's the tip of India. And where Sri Lanka is kind of hanging on to the bottom of India, it was split apart from India by the impact of the, what I call it, Gudapa asteroid. And that was the initial small hole it made. But the big hole it made, you go back and you look at slide 1. And slide 1 shows the raised and lowered areas of the surface of the Earth. NASA finished this some time back. And you're looking where the purple is, magenta, and you will see that an area of 6 square miles is depressed there from something, and it's a dent, right? And if you look to the right where the arrow point, there is an area on the southwest part of the Ring of Fire in the Pacific that is pushed up about 6 million square miles, pushed up 350 feet.
I see that. Let me ask you this, Dan. How do we know that it's asteroids and it's not maybe nuclear weapons?
Oh, I'll tell you why. Go back to slide image number 6.
Okay.
This is the band of C. That band of C is the rim of the asteroid that made the hole over in the Indian Ocean and shoved its way all over, kicked New Guinea and Australia and Indonesia over into where it is now in the Pacific. That is the bed made when the asteroid stopped.
Wow.
And it's the same kind of footprint. You'll find that modern scientists have already said there's one like this at the southern tip of Argentina. It's called the El Tanin meteor. And the El Tanin meteor, if you look at the southern tip down there, I've got that on here, I'm just looking quickly. Anyway, look up El Tanin asteroid at the South Pole, and you'll see it made the same kind of a footprint as it collided into the surface. And it's almost like it was a big, slow-moving giant that shoved everything. Instead of making a direct hit in a normal type crater, it pushed it ahead and shoved at the rim. And in this case, it made the band of C.
Well, it seems like we've been bombarded. The question is, did all this happen at once, or did this happen over the course of hundreds of years or thousands of years?
It could be the latter, over several years, hundreds or whatever, because if you look at 7, I have an animation showing all the others. I found 4 other impact zones like this, one in China, one in, let's say the Philippines. There are a number of other big impact craters like this, or shove craters that you can see, and these are huge. Now, the one that caused the flood and sank Atlantis is the band of sea one. There is no question about that in my mind. It's the one you see in that number 1 graph or image, where you see that huge depression, where it pushed down the seabed and shoved the majority of it headward over into the Pacific rim. But what you don't understand is that when it hit like that, at that low angle coming from the left of your picture going to the right, west-east, it shoved a bunch of the seabed and the mantle of the planet underneath that up in the air and back behind it onto Saudi Arabia, onto the lower Arabian island it was at the time.
It sure does look like it.
Well, the oil industry tried to understand, and I've had the geologist contact me. One of them contacted me on Skype from his laptop in Mongolia when he was out there. He said, I just heard what you were saying, and we have been trying to figure out how this happened and what caused it, and you just answered the question. So if you go down to slide 28, 29, and 30, these are what he sent me from a talk they were having, trying to figure out where all this overburden, 9,000 feet of it, of the seabed and mantle, how it feet of it, of the seabed and mantle, how it deposited over Oman in the southern part of Saudi Arabia, of the Arabian Peninsula. You couldn't find a media that did it, and I found it for them. I tell you what, it is there, and they are so excited now because they say, well, now we understand backflow. It splashed, it blew all this ophiolite over the top, and you'll see that in the images there, particularly image 29. And then a close-up version of man where the ophiolite is deposited in image 30. So this is geological proof that the asteroid was there. They couldn't find it, and I found it. And now in Australia, down in Marble Bar, which is on the northwest part of Australia, a physicist there, a geologist there at the Australian National University, about 4 months ago published a paper saying there was a pretty big meteor hit somewhere out there because it left glass spherules in the strata beneath this area. He was drilling down, and he said, I don't know where it is, but it had to be about 12 to 15 miles in diameter. So I wrote to him, I said, I found out about it. So you can't be the age of this planet don't match. He just did not open his mind to the fact that it shoved Australia there where it is now from where it used to be. And, until you can get them to break free of this constraints of, modern science. Look at slide 8 on that space. Slide 8, I have black. Australia Black Museum, Black Bikini.
So, as my phone is out, I cannot show. And just do a long check. Right. So basically, it's all my phone's had 23 playbacks. Right. So it's obviously the fucking people coming in. That's a very interesting subject with, let me just check the title, The Military Mailbs, Super Soldier Program, AI Technology, Darkwood Program, and below in the bio section, look at the history of the past technology, and you heard this goes back before the dinosaur era. I'm just absolutely this is biblical. And how it's created, and it's not just Project Paperclip, is it? Because it goes back further than that. And now look how technology has progressed. So, I mean, obviously before my time as well, and before my mum's time, more like my grandmother's time. The use of the brain test in the brain. Why do they need to use technology to upload the brain to a supercomputer, DARPA, the consciousness to the brain? An awfully test on subjected individuals without their consent is known as the word. That's where the terminology came from, target individuals. And the use of the MK Ultra, and that, as I said earlier, goes back in centuries ago, how these bloodline families within the Illuminati, and this is a title, it goes back, as I said, how their kids were raised. So here we are today. The psyop, really, in deception and generally in society, it's very demonic. It's been building up this Luciferian mixed really with the dumps, the deep underground military bases. With their links, it's like they've been hinting at the public for so long in television program, the radio, and then invention of the internet. First it's the dial-up and the mobile phones, and then during the war years, I mean, all this technology has been around, but not perhaps in the public domain, but mainly in the military domain, or probably around the world for a long, long time. Anti-gravity. I'm not a physics, I'm not into all this. I'm not expert in nothing, I'm just observing. And then you got the artificial intelligence. Now, all these, I'm not even going to watch a film, I'm just going to listen to some scriptures and healing music in the background shortly. The end of the demonic game. It's not a game, but they see it's a game. They see our souls, the human souls, can be overtaken by the demonic nature. And so you have the conquer and divide, so against each other, of humanity, colour, race, income, bracket, lifestyles, class defined, and this is what they want, to be distracted. So humanity, is now waking up. It's like an awakening. It's like the period of Aquarius, of like an awakening, the soul's awakening, the spirit's awakening. So my traumatic past young life as a child from my adulthood, and then mixing into these public servants, and then knowing what I know now, and then much more today, it's like in a way I could say, I could be wrong, it's by design. So when I've listened to the super soldier, there's a channel out there, just Google it, websites, and take it pinch of salt if you want, if you need to all. If you think, oh, this is all fabricated, it's up to you. But I'm fully able to make my own informed decisions, weigh up the knowledge, research. I've got a background in research and so much more. Just because my experiences and trauma, and especially recently, does not cloud my judgment. It might take me a while to overcome the trauma and the shock. You know, when you go through this trauma, it's just because one has in England or wherever you are in the world, they label it as post-traumatic stress. Like people's come out of the military, seen horrible things, and done horrible things in their job, perhaps, and they're traumatic experiences. So all I've ever had is that. Not everything's like that, but a lot of it's been like that. And then you learn to adjust, and it is a hard learning process, and even more today. So that robbery, that theft of my bag, it's things. It's just items. And so what? The technology of reference to the brain is they have this technology. It sounds far-fetched, but they have the technology to if you ever stopped and once you find things out and you remember the sci-fi type movies you ever watched, I always refer back to Fifth Element, the futuristic type sci-fis. And then you got want to bring in, the hive mind, the thought police, robotics. I mean, everything is going that way. For a long time, they've portrayed the implant for the brain is why did to get the Matrix movies out, and all these scripts in these movies. And one I found dated 1981. It's all what we're going through in the world now, in a nutshell. So, transhumanism avatar. So, with a digital world, and it's like evolution of species coming from, what is real, what is the perception of reality, and this you've got to be careful of, because when they use the technology, the brain interface, they can manipulate with that brain frequencies, EMF waves, scatter waves technology. And then because you can't take it all in at once, it's breaking it all down bit by bit. So for my upbringing, in a way, my mum meant well. When people quote King James Bible verse in the end of times, end of days, it's true, it's here. I've seen so much and observed so much my half life on this physical plane, knowing too well how I'm not expert in how all the patterns since 1940s, 50s is the first known ones I've come across a while ago. Before my computer got badly hacked, I had them all synchronized, stored, got wiped out. So on this robbery, on this theft of all my belongings recently, in there, it's not necessarily, they know your data anyway. They know what phones. It's a brand new phone I got, right, as a backup. They've hacked it within hours. So there's surely something about certain individuals. They've got to make sure this is monitored 24 hours a day. So that stream, I tried to do a video of it to show you how they do this. It sounds to those that are not aware of this program, oh, it's just somebody snoring or sleeping, and there's sounds in the background. No. And now they've hacked into my phone, the only one that's half decent, and the other ones are gone. So I've been busy making sure my accounts I use online and stuff, change any mobile numbers, link to it, and delete that stuff. Not that it matters these days because it's all about data collection and mining data. Now they do in England the use of the mega data, the digitalised world, the lockstep or whatever you want to call it, the Rockefeller Foundation subject. That's nothing, you know. That's old school technology. And then they, you know, their certain alternative platforms are manipulating the genes, DNA, genetic experiments. And I saw a new upload to, there's many platforms out there, but a certain site I signed up for movies and other things. And the movie's called, it's related to cloning. Some husband's wife died, so he works on the genetic experiments and recloning to relive that memory of his wedding night. That's the storyline. Oh, sadly goes wrong. But just that's just only released. That's like conditioning public's minds to get used to. Well, you could clone another individual of yourself to have body parts that you might need in the future to, you know, if you get ill or whatever, and you can just have repeated clones made of you if you can afford it. I'm sure these private companies will start popping up offering these services in the future. You see, and then having these certain offers of certain, you know what, in the art, and could there be some kind of technology linked? Who knows? But with the transhumanism creating, like in the Matrix movie, you've got the linking up the bio data, the actual human flesh and blood data with artificial data, AI technology with such precise synthetics materials used with nano precision and AI. The future of humanity, half human, half machine. But these programs and TV shows and films already on the subject, it's already a couple of years, for example, I've got out there about how AI has its own consciousness on the machines and taken over everything in humanity. I know that's drastic in the storyline, but then on top, it's like I'm going to listen to this audio offline, but not on the stream, because there's a lot of things I want to listen into. And try and rest, because it's going to be another stressful day, later on today and the rest of the week. There's a lot going on. So this is a physical existence, you know. when you look at the biology of the body, you see it can only take so much physical stress and the lack of sleep and the stresses on the physical body, they all work in tangent together. They've all got functions, the mind, the soul, the body is in tangent. Once you take the soul out to human makeup of the body, it's possessed demonically. It's empty, soulless. So the one thing I was taught by my late mum, and she did mean well, to have faith within oneself. You know, I mean, it's very difficult when you're going through the MyLab program. You used the false aliens abductions example, with the technology using remote viewing. I mean, goodness me, that's another subject, another day. And then using that remote viewing and through the wall technology to have these entities claiming to be, say, reptilian and shapeshifters, but really it's people who've got this technology advanced and can do certain things to you when you're in that dream state. But you're not really dreaming. It's what they implanted their dreamings into your mind using this technology. It sounds far-fetched, I know. So how did humans get created in the first place? Because if the real history and the evidence and documents got out to the populace, the general populace at large, then that's going to create all mainstream religions up on its head. That's going to create, can you imagine, it may create so much unrest that the globalist elites most probably do not want, but they want to collapse our financial system that they created. They created a monetary fiat system, which is only backed up by the labour of the living men and women. So, you know, and when you learn about the financial system and how and why they want to create the digital coins and digital currency, if you don't take this, that, and the other certain offers, you don't have a job, a home, can't shop and mark of the beast, they keep calling it. But when you link it up, you break it down bit by bit and do your research and find things out for first hand, not just by a website or video you might watch, but you've actually done the work to look at it up and work it all out bit by bit. And I've not worked everything out, but I know the DUMs and MyLab programs. I mean, and it's not just for the technology experimentations. Why would you need children? Why would you need a cabal to use children to do certain things to them on the underground basis? Why would they need to experimentation? Why would they need to have some such age to then to have breeders? You see, these documents I found before I got badly hacked, I think could be one of the reasons I got hacked. Who knows? But this is how everything was wiped, and that document as well. It details somebody that got out, and she was a breeder. She was made to have children, just so they can be experimented on, and then other things happen to it. I never saw it ground. But these dark winters and all these alternative social media I'm listening to and observing is because certain powers that be on the positive side is aware of the dark agenda that's been going on for too long. They're trying to correct humanity's sake. They're trying to correct it. So be careful about deception as well, because I know too well how I am being demonically. Things happen to me, right? So let's get rid of the troll. You always get one or two. Right, so I'll have to end this stream here, and I will try and keep going. I'll try and